What's going on, gang? Red Channels here. So, recently, as I'm sure you've heard because it's all over the news, yesterday there was a shooting at Annunciation Catholic High School in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Yesterday being August 27th. 2 dead, 12 injured. The 23-year-old shooter, Robin Westman, was found dead at the scene from a self inflicted gunshot wound. And the significance of this situation, why it's really blowing up, is because the shooter identified as transgender and targeted the school for religious reasons. A video was uploaded on YouTube where this guy laid out his manifesto, but it has since been taken down, of course. I'm pretty sure you can still find it online if you. I think I've seen it on floating around on Twitter, but I'm obviously not going to include it in this video for obvious reasons. But the response of the left to this event has predictably been terrible. It would almost be better if they pretended like it didn't happen and didn't address it. That was kind of the angle they took with the Audrey Hale situation. For those of you who remember that, it was a female to male transgender person who also shot up a Christian school about a year ago or so. And this time they've really taken aim. This time the left has really taken aim at thoughts and prayers. They're just losing their minds, that conservatives would say, thoughts and prayers in a situation like this.
These were Minneapolis families. These were American families. And the amount of pain that they are suffering right now is extraordinary. And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church. These are kids that should be learning with their friends. They should be playing on the playground. They should be able to go to school or church in peace without the fear or risk of violence, and their parents should have the same kind of assurance. These are the sort of basic assurances that every family should have, every step of the day, regardless of where they are in our country.
Here is a very quick video of the very same Minneapolis mayor thinking and praying by George Floyd's golden casket.
Joy comes in the morning. Troubles, they don't last always. Lord, there's a friend.
I always thought that this was a really stupid and disgusting position for the left to take, to go after people saying thoughts and prayers, because it's a social grace and not a policy position. And it's also not necessary. I mean, they've kind of made it that way now. It's like not an inherently right-wing thing to say. Like, there were liberal Catholics who sent their kids to this school and probably also have told other people thoughts and prayers when horrible situations have befallen them. And the shooter's mother, in fact, was described by this one Catholic priest who was defending her as a devout Catholic. And she also apparently signed the papers for this individual to change his name. People often forget that there's an entire wing of the Democrat Party that is actually pro-life Catholics who just apply Catholic social teaching in other liberal ways. And they're especially strong in the Midwest, where this shooting occurred. But anyway, the mayor of Minneapolis doubled down on his statements, and we can take a quick look at that.
When you talk about compassion, I don't want to tiptoe around the edge of this, but the shooter's name was in question, the gender of the shooter. No one's really sure what's going on there. 5 years ago it was Robert, then a name changed to Robin. Okay. This is being seized in all corners, as you can imagine, in all sorts of ways. And you know that, Mayor, and perhaps that's why when you spoke about this so profoundly and powerfully as you are even here now, but when you spoke about this today publicly, you voiced concern for the transgender community, for the community overall. And obviously you chose to do that in that moment because you thought it was important. And I wanted to give you a chance to say why you felt it was important to do that in that moment.
Obviously, I've heard about the rhetoric and the narrative that is being pushed out, but here's the thing. Anybody that is going to use this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any community has lost touch with a common humanity. We got to be operating not out of hate for any group, but out of a love for our children. That's where the focus needs to be right now. A love for our kids. Seeing these kids, not just as somebody else's kids, this horrific thing happened, but what if it was our own? How would we feel then? So, look, we need to be standing up for every community out there. A Catholic community, too, by the way. I mean, any community that suffers this kind of blow, or Minneapolis community, you got to stand up for them. But, you know, I feel oftentimes in these instances there's this desire to villainize a group. You want to call this an act of cowardice? Do it, because it is. But regardless of what group or background, gender, you know, the bottom line is that kids got killed. Let's love each other more. Let's love each other more, because the antidote to hate is not more hate. Hurt people, and the antidote to hate is a whole lot more love. That's where we all need to be going right now.
Well, Mayor Fry, I'm grateful to you for taking the time and sharing that. And thank you. Thank you for being with me.
It's wild how empty his words feel. The antidote to hate is a whole lot more love. What does that even mean in this context? Also, by the way, he's going on and on about like how it doesn't matter what the shooter's background or identity was, but then like liberals will be so quick to point out that, oh man, another white male shooter. Like, it's completely disingenuous, completely fake. He's doing this and bringing out the, oh, well, if you want to connect this back to a specific community, that's about demonization. I mean, he's doing this just to shame people out of connecting the dots and noticing patterns here. And another thing in the response by established, respected institutions such as the Minneapolis police force and the left is saying that the shooter had no known motive, to try to turn this into a mystery. Oh, it's just a madman who did this randomly. And then to try and make the conversation about guns instead of actually focusing on the real issue, which is the fact that it is statistically completely improbable that a mass shooting by a transgender person would happen even once in this country, let alone multiple times.
So the question was on a possible motive and a relationship to the church or to the school. I have no information to share on a motive other than saying again that there was some sort of manifesto that was timed to come out on YouTube. It's been taken down, and our investigators are going through that to try and develop a motive from that. Additionally, there are these 3 search warrants happening in residential locations, and we may very well, find more information or writings that could give some sense to that, but we don't have that now. And I cannot confirm a relationship between the suspect or his family and this church at this time, but that's obviously something we're looking very closely at.
These kids did extraordinary things, but they never should have been put in that position in the first place. This was a madman. He was an all-purpose hater, by the way. Hated groups left, right, you name it. There's no way to pin an ideology on this, and I think people should remember this as the facts come out about this manifesto. But what I learned from this, once again, is that guns, and we're a proud hunting state. There's a lot of law-abiding gun owners in Minnesota. But there's got to be more we can do.
Oh, that's not so much. So?
An all-purpose hater who we can't pin an ideology onto. Meanwhile, one of the chuds in my Discord, Tara, sends me tons of photos of all the writing this nutcase had over the guns he used to shoot up this school. Also, another thing that people have noticed is that Fox's coverage of the issue has been, shall we say, less than optimal.
Our system is reactive. Something bad happens, we react to it. And what people are crying for now is, how can we prevent this? How can we stop it? And the only way to stop it is to identify the shooter ahead of time or keep the weapons out of their hands. And so we're going to have a conversation of freedom versus protecting children. I mean, how many school shootings does it take before we're going to have a conversation about keeping firearms out? It's always a young white male, almost always. I mean, did anyone this morning think, I wonder if that was a female? Did any of y'all think that? I mean, there's been one school shooting involving a female.
It was in Tennessee.
One. Yeah, Tennessee. But other than that, it is usually young white males.
Do you think there could have been something done if someone changes their name and thinks they're another gender? Would you not have them have access to weapons?
No, I think there are trans people who are stalked and they are terrorized and they worry about their own self-protection and they deserve to protect themselves. I worry about someone who has ever gone to the doctor and says, you know, I feel a little anxious. Can you prescribe me some Xanax for a plane? And then all of a sudden their name goes on some federal database. Yeah, and they can never get a weapon to defend themselves. There are plenty of laws keeping good people from buying guns and ammunition. You know, we talked to Joe, our local sporting goods guy, and, you know, he's furious that people who deserve to protect themselves and their families, for people who enjoy sporting life, that they are not capable to go in and buy a weapon without some sort of registry. Yes, this person was mentally ill. It's not the trans part. It's the part that he was absolutely, completely evil. And in places like Minnesota, they do have red flag laws. And his parents should have known. And parents should be nosy. Absolutely. But, you know, I wish there was someone there to put a bullet between this little a-hole's eyes before he was able to pull a trigger.
Maybe I'm a little jaded, but that lady's outrage was a little bit performative for my taste. Yeah, this is a horrible situation, but she just goes off and she just kind of like deflects from the fact that, yes, it is the trans part. It is the fact that this was apparently a religiously motivated, or I guess you could say anti-religiously motivated shooting perpetrated by someone who identified as trans. It's not just some sort of general evil, general indescribable evil that he acted out of. No, it was tied to this person's identity. Now, does that mean that every transgender person in America is at risk of doing something like this? No, of course not. But we do need to reckon with the fact that the left's rhetoric regarding these issues has been insane, that people who gravitate to this transgender ideology are very frequently unbalanced, if you will. And we need to come to terms with that. You can't ignore that. You can't ignore the elephant in the room here.
Because let's be clear, this is life affirming and life saving healthcare. When our children tell us who they are, it is our job as grown-ups to listen and to believe them. That's what it means to be a good parent.
That was Minnesota Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan coming out strong for the trans youth. And you can see here her shirt, a little bit less clear in the video, but you can see it clearly here in this picture, has a knife on it and is talking about protect trans kids. It really makes your skin crawl how their protect trans kids rhetoric always has this very strong undercurrent of violence associated with it. Like they're just waiting to hurt someone over this cause they fanatically believe in. And it's disturbing that someone who actually holds formal power in American government really genuinely thinks this way. She is the lieutenant governor of Minnesota. Like, it's just, it really boggles the mind. This isn't seeing this account or that account with a couple thousand followers, tens of thousand followers, maybe 100,000 followers at most, spouting this sort of rhetoric. This is a woman who in real life holds a position of authority over other people, recognized by the state, who is wearing a shirt like this. It's insane. But let's go ahead and sample another couple crazy videos by the left.
And all they should be hoping to do is have someone to sit with at lunch or someone to play with on the playground. And they should be waiting to hear an update when they get home. And that is not what these parents at the school experience today. Sorry, this is a tough one. Having your child killed while they are sitting in a pew for a morning prayer service is not what any parent should have to worry about. And I have felt a mixture of anger and a lot of anger and emotional exhaustion about this today, as I'm sure many of you have, because we have been here so many times. And yet again, like clockwork, half the politicians in our country have little more to offer than thoughts and prayers. That is all they are offering. Join all of us in praying for the victims, was Vice President J.D. Vance's response today. That's what he said. That's it. Please join me in praying for everyone involved, Trump wrote. We have seen this play out over and over again. There is a shooting, then come the thoughts and prayers, and then comes the attempt to shift the focus. This is what always happens. You're going to start seeing narratives. You're already seeing them. They're already out there about how the shooter was trans. You're going to see narratives about how the shooter appeared to be anti-Trump and anti-Semitic, and clearly was in the midst of a mental health crisis. There's no question about that. But here's the thing. There are trans people all over the world. There are anti-Semitic people, unfortunately, all over the world. And people filled with plenty of political hate all over the world. And mental health issues are not unique to the United States. And yes, we should do more to address them. But it's also an issue all over the world. But this is the only country where shootings like this one happen this often. The United States not only has the highest rate of gun violence of any country in the world, it's become a leading cause of death for young people and teenagers in this country. That should make everybody angry. Weaponizing the shooter's identity is meant to distract from what matters. That is what they are doing, trying to distract from what matters. Here's what matters. Today's shooter bought the rifle, handgun, and shotgun they used to do what they did today legally. We live in a country with more guns than people, where there are not universal background checks, there are not bans on assault weapons, and it is far too easy to buy a gun. It's the guns, everyone. It's not really a secret. There are a lot of things to feel outraged about right now, and I really try.
Okay, so I held this in because I wanted to sit with it and say it the correct way, but within minutes after hearing about the situation this morning, I think it's awfully ironic how it has been said that many of these situations have felt to be orchestrated in the past. And here we are, in the place in the world that we are, where the type of religion that this specific incident happened in the home of is being pushed across our country. Wouldn't it make sense that the people that are trying to push that agenda would be the ones in the back alley that actually orchestrated it, so that they would have a reason to further create more chaos and divide by saying, look what happened? There's no way to know that, but that's what this feels like to me. This feels like a bullshit setup that unfortunately children were the victims of, but do the government or the people that potentially did this, would they care? Absolutely not. They don't care about taking out kids if it gets their people to get riled up and back them more. So think about that.
Here's what we're not going to do with the information coming out about the Annunciation Catholic School event. We are not going to make this about how trans people are the problem. We are not going to be attacking the LGBTQ community over this. Because let me give you this statistic. Of all of the mass events like this since 1966 at schools and other places, 98% have been by cis men. 53% of those, white cis men. Four in the last decade have been by transgender people. 4. So you tell me where the problem lies. And here's one more to leave you with if you don't believe my argument. 70%. That is the percentage of white cis males that perpetrated these things on K-12 campuses between 1997 and 2022. I was at a school during one of these events when I was in college. I was at the University of Arizona when the nursing school was hit, and my dorm was in the parking lot of where that was. I could hear the shots from my dorm room. This was in 2002. Why on earth is this still happening? But we will not be blaming the LGBTQ population.
They're pulling out all the stops to get you to not notice the patterns here, to demonize white men. That's really the goal, to get people not to think, to deflect. It's truly disgusting. You know, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain is really what's going on here. Anyways, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave a comment. That would be nice. That'd be great. Share this video if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. Give it a like. And sub to me on Patreon if you want to monetarily support this channel. And Red Channels will, of course, catch you in the next one.